Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're diving into a genuinely hot topic, a real public policy debate. Should Malaysia actually lower the primary school starting age from 7 down to 6? I mean, it's a conversation that sparks some pretty intense opinions, right? Parents, educators, policymakers, everyone has a take. And honestly, it's super common to just assume that starting formal education a year earlier naturally gives kids this crucial head start. But in this brief analysis, we're going to look way beyond those gut assumptions. We're going to look right at the data to see what actually happens when we shift the starting line of a child's educational journey. So it's kind of the ultimate question, isn't it? Does starting earlier truly equal a better, more successful future? Instinctively, the math just seems simple. More time in school equals more learning, and that equals better outcomes. We literally all fall into that trap of thinking earlier is absolutely better. But, as you'll see, human development and macroeconomics are rarely that straightforward. Actually, scratch that. They're never that straightforward. So today we're going to dismantle that simplistic assumption and look at the actual measurable impacts of school entry age. And to really ground our analysis today, we're turning to some rigorous academic work by Shamsulung Sarifuddin. He's a brilliant researcher and senior lecturer of economics over at Help University Malaysia. By applying his specific expertise in the economics of education, we're going to look at this not just as an emotional parenting issue, which it totally is, but through a really strict, solid economic framework. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap. We'll be looking at 1, the school entry age debate, 2, the relative age effect, 3, education ecosystem trade-offs, 4, economic ripple effects, 5, the labor market impact, and finally, number 6, system quality versus age. All right, moving right into section 1, the school's starting age debate, exploring the myth versus reality. Next up, section 2, the relative age effect, and looking at exactly what the international data actually says. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this whole concept of the relative age effect. In the economics of education, researchers consistently find that maturity differences within a single identical grade level heavily impact early performance. Just think about it for a second. At age 6 or 7, a 12-month difference in age, that is a massive percentage of that child's entire life. It's huge. The older kids in the exact same classroom are, well, they're often biologically and emotionally way more mature. So how does this actually play out over time? Well, in the short term, slightly older students adapt much easier. They show better academic performance, higher confidence, the whole shebang. But over the long term, that early advantage actually shrinks. It really does. Researchers like Bedard and Dewey and Black and his colleagues have shown that this achievement gap narrows significantly as kids grow up. Ultimately, your starting age has an incredibly limited impact on your future income and labor market outcomes. Age is quite literally just a starting condition, not the final determinant of success. Which brings us to section 3, education ecosystem trade-offs, where we balance the costs and the benefits. Okay, let's walk through this trade-off ledger together. This brilliantly illustrates how complex this is. For parents, starting at 6 provides a structured family routine earlier, right? But it also brings forward high initial financial costs and this immense pressure regarding school readiness. For the kids themselves, sure, they get early literacy exposure, but they face a really severe risk of early stress if their emotional maturity just doesn't match the rigid formal school structure. For teachers, they get early intervention opportunities, but boom, suddenly they're burdened with wildly different maturity levels in one single room, requiring massive pedagogical flexibility. And finally, for the government, it promises a longer formal learning period to boost human capital, but it absolutely demands massive upfront investments in infrastructure and early childhood education. If they don't do that, they risk widening the inequality gap. So it's a huge balancing act. Let's move to section 4, economic ripple effects and the indirect chain reactions. So if we zoom out, a policy shift like this triggers a massive economic chain reaction. It's really not just about teachers and students anymore. Look at this list. School transport businesses, they'd see a sudden earlier surge in demand. Publishers would literally need to overhaul all their textbooks and learning modules for a younger demographic. The uniform and school supply industries would face a total shift in sizing and inventory. We'd see an absolute boom in edtech, with digital learning apps just rushing to capture a younger formal market. And of course, tuition and enrichment centers, they'd totally expand their markets downward to cater to anxious parents of 6-year-olds. It shifts millions of dollars across multiple industries practically overnight. All right, zooming out one final time to section 5, labor market impact, the final destination of human capital.
Here is the definitive conclusion from labor economics. When we look at the ultimate demand side, the employers out there, starting age has almost zero long-term impact on salary, job mobility, or employability. No way, right? But it's true. So what actually dictates success in the labor market? It's cognitive skills, it's social skills, and it's the overall quality of the education received over a lifetime. Changing the starting age without fundamentally improving the wider education system, it simply doesn't yield richer, more employable graduates. It just doesn't. Finally, Section 6, System Quality versus Age and our Policy Conclusion. So the absolutely crucial point here is this. We need to stop agonizing over the number printed on a birth certificate and start asking the right questions. Is the current educational system actually ready to support the emotional and pedagogical needs of much younger children? If we lower the age, will it shrink the socioeconomic gap or will it severely widen it, simply because only wealthy families can afford the necessary preschool prep? Do we have a robust enough early childhood education framework to even support this transition? The core issue here is the system itself, not the age of the child.
We're going to end on this incredibly powerful insight from our expert guide today, Saimsulong Surfadin, researcher and senior lecturer of economics from Help University, Malaysia. He says, age determines when the journey begins, but the system determines how far that journey yields results. I mean, wow, that really hits the nail on the head. Are we spending way too much energy debating the starting line when we really should be focused on paving a better road? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me. And hey, keep questioning the systems around you.